right, what's good? Welcome back to another episode of the Henny Nice Podcast. As always, I'm your host, your brother Jay White, coming to you live from the crib until, back in the studio. Shout out to Kazi, you feel me? Can't wait to see the new developments with that per usual. But we taking it back to the very, very humble beginnings of the podcast, straight out the crib, taking it back old fashioned. But first things first, Henny Nice merch. Click the link in the show notes to get your crew necks, your tees, and more merchandise. I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I just had to get in their ass like a week or so ago. So if you ordered anything and it hasn't been shipped just yet, but they gave you an estimated window and timing, let me know. Because I may be switching vendors, because I don't want that to look bad upon me. I want y'all to get y'all stuff. So order y'all merch from the show link. And of course, thank you for your support. But now I have a guest that has not been on the show since 2019. That's what I was looking for beforehand. I had to make sure that was right, that it was 4 years ago. But
wow.
Hey,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's the one and only, the celebrity herself, the momature, international, world-renowned, Big Winnie, what they call her. Straight out of STL, but now residing in Atlanta in her brand new co-working digs. I'm gonna have to start doing video for real, bro. Because must be on the video clowning. But Winnie has made her grand return to the Henny Nice podcast, kicking it with the little people. You feel me?
Shut up. Hello.
What's up?
My great welcome.
Yeah.
Where the sparkles? I need the bottles with the sparkles.
I don't know. So about that, we don't have none of that or whatever. But the video platform I'm using, they might have something. I have to dive in.
It works.
It works. Yeah, it works. I like it. You feel me? So I might have to, pay for the whole version out here, not just the free version. But
when you start releasing like video interviews, have me back so I can wear my Henny Nights merch.
Oh, say less.
Yeah.
Say less. It's dope. But yeah, man, it's been a minute. A lot has changed. A lot has happened.
Changed. A lot has happened.
Yeah. You left here when one baby. You left the city with one baby.
What had happened was we just gonna call a spade Marwin, who is now my husband, had the audacity. We was only here for about 4 months and he knocked me up. Like that don't make sense.
It do make sense. That's what you're supposed to do.
He was like, "You thought you was gonna have a hot girl summer in Atlanta? Absolutely not." So here we are.
He understood what needed to be done. It's time for retirement, and took you out the game. But but like it's a lot to catch up on. I don't assume that everybody knows the stories of the people that I have on the podcast. So, we're going to spend this time catching up. You made the decision to leave, it was the city. That's something that you took lightly, of course. So what was the catalyst for that? And, what has living in Atlanta, basically for the last 4 years. On top of that, you left in the middle of the pandemic, the
Yeah.
Ponderosa, the Panda Express, the Panda Express, you know. So there were some challenges there. But yeah, I wanted to, for listeners, for longtime listeners and new listeners, of course, what was that like? How did you survive that? How did you make that work? And
Yeah.
some of the lessons that you learned from that.
Yeah, I feel like, well, first, to the long time listeners and those who are familiar with me, what's up, y'all? And for the new listeners, I am one half of Books and Bros. So if you don't know about Books and Bros, it is a youth-led subscription-based service where we amplify African American literature for boys. And I started that with my son, Sydney Keys. And so that's what I do, like 75% of the time is managing that. Outside of that, I am a publicist and I manage clients outside of Books and Bros. So I'm also juggling that at the same time. And then the other, whatever percentage I have left, I am also juggling and balancing that with a 1-year old whose name is Aria, and trying to have some time for me and have fun. So that's like my day to day. But yeah, so we moved in I want to say it was August 1st, 2020. It was in August. I know it was August,
Mm-hmm.
2020. And what honestly, like, what pushed us to make the decision, first of all, like, James, I've always loved Atlanta. I've loved Atlanta for a really long time, for like, I guess going on 10 years now. It's a lot in common of what you hear other people who look like us say. Like, Atlanta has been a lot of people's first exposure to like Black excellence, like in the flesh. Like, I don't even want to say the first, because obviously, like, there are excellent Black people in St. Louis, and everywhere in the country, because like we just that, like, we're excellent. But like, when you see like Black people who are young, who are like in corporate spaces or who are executives, now, like, I feel like in 2023, that's becoming more common. But like 10 years ago, it wasn't. Not for everybody, not for people living in the Midwest, where a lot of spaces are more white led and, whitewashed. So it was just really refreshing to see and super like inspirational. So that's, I've always loved Atlanta. But what pushed us to move in 2020, honestly, in 2020, we didn't know what was going on. Like, we didn't know if we was going to be here in the next month. We didn't know if aliens was about to come down. We didn't know what was happening. And for me, I'm like, all right, like, I got to live my life to the fullest, and I can't do 1,000% of everything that I want to do, that's on my bucket list. But I was like, ever since I was a child, I always talked about living somewhere else. So I was never necessarily like married to the idea of living in one city my whole life.
Right.
And once Marwin came along, we were dating, but we were pretty serious at that point. I think we had been together for like 7-8 months, and we got all the non-negotiables and stuff out the way. So I know, like, for some folks, they like, that's still early, like, you still getting to know each other. But like, he knew I wouldn't win no games up front. I was like, hey, I ain't got time for the bull right now. So either you in or you ain't. Like, it is what it is. And I told him, like, and I don't even think I've told people this for real. I don't even know if I told you this, but like, literally on our second date, I looked him in the face and was like, so, like, would you ever live outside of St. Louis? And he was like, I mean, like, I feel like he was trying to figure out like what answer he should say. And he was just like, I mean, like, it sounds cool. And I was like, well, I'm just asking because obviously, like, if you don't see yourself leaving this city, then we just gonna have to be friends. Like, it's just, I'm just keeping it a buck. Like, I'm not staying here forever. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm not staying here forever. And he was like, oh, well, no, like, that's cool. We can move. Like, he's like, I'm down.
Right.
And so, granted, like, obviously, when it became a reality, it was a deeper conversation. It was harder. We did have like our first counseling session together before we moved, to make sure that this was a commitment that made sense for the both of us. So like I felt like, people get counseling before they get married. And I was like, well, we need counseling before we move across the country together. Like it's still commitment.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, so I guess like to sum it up, because it's a really long story, but like to sum it up, what really pushed us to move was honestly, life is short. You didn't know what the next day would look like. Also, Sydney was approaching high school, so he had just finished middle school in the spring of 2020, and he had honestly had been telling me since he was in the 7th grade that he didn't know what school he would necessarily fit in St. Louis. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, if I want to be like prepared for success, no matter where I'm at in the world or in the country, I want to explore outside of St. Louis. And I was like, I couldn't even fight him on that. I was just like, all right. And he was in middle school when he made that comment. So we started
Right.
just kind of throwing some things out there. He was in private school, his middle school at the time, but I started looking at private high schools here just because, the lifestyle that he got accustomed to and started getting all this attention. I just wanted to make sure he was around like-minded kids. So didn't necessarily need to be private school, but I also like wanted to make sure he was in the right setting, for the type of kid he is. So his education is also what pushed us to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And so like
Yeah.
now he's at like one of the top high schools in Georgia, which I didn't know that. I was like, oh, like when I was shooting high. Like oh.
I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the worst that can be told to you is no. So, at that point in the life that y'all were in, because I've been privy to a lot of the accomplishments and the things that have been going on in your life, and I've known Marwin separately outside of you as well, but I've known
Mhm.
you longer, of course. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a decision for y'all where it was just time.
Yeah.
And the only way to get through it was to do it. I'm sure when you got down there and you were like, the fuck did I get myself into? And trying to figure that out and trying to balance, new city, getting your son adjusted, maintaining your relationship
Mhm. It was
as well
maintaining
as
a lot of
like
relationships.
as your sanity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then that's why I say, so like, what are some of the things like once you moved away that were kind of like eye opening to you that you didn't necessarily, you can't account for everything, but
Yeah.
um something that you was just like, oh, well, shit, that wasn't in the cards for me.
Yeah. I mean, I
Outside
think
of the obvious of having a baby and not having your summer. Outside of that.
yeah. Oh, obviously. I think the first thing that was kind of hard or there was like a wake up call is that like I was like moving from St. Louis is smaller than Atlanta. So it's like
Mhm.
moving from what could be looked at as a small city and going into a bigger city. Automatically, I felt like I was a little fish in a big ass pond. Like I was just like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. Like now I have to like reestablish myself. And like, how do I do that in a way where I stay true to me and like I don't water down or diminish like my accomplishments just to I don't want to say fit in, but like to adjust to a new space. And so one thing for me that's always been important is like I love to be connected to people, but I need to be connected to the right people. I don't care where I'm at. And so I ended
Mhm.
up actually I heard about the Gathering Spot as a social club, a Black owned social club here in Atlanta. And I think I started doing research, decided to go ahead and fill out an application because you have to apply to be a part of the Gathering Spot and have access to their club and all this stuff. And so I applied, I ended up getting accepted, and that was probably one of the best things that happened for me. Is like finding a social club, like finding a space with people that most likely have the same interests, focal points, all of that. And so, granted, like the membership ain't cheap, so you definitely are making an investment. But it was like it's been cool because like the Gathering Spot is also in Atlanta, and their mission is like supporting entrepreneurs, but also like supporting artists. So you never know like who you will see. So I think like the first time I went up there, like Waka Flocka was just like walking around. I was like, okay, like all right, like just getting work done. And I've seen like Will Packer, which I'm still mad at myself to this day that I did not actually speak to him. But I always say like maybe I'll see him again in the future. Go ahead and pitch a movie idea to him. Why not? Who like you wouldn't want to?
I don't know what I would
But I'm saying like if
pitch
you had,
if
but
I
if
had
you
the
had
chance to rap with him,
right,
or me like, yo, put me. I want to be in something. That's more
yeah. So like, why
the.
you looking at me crazy?
I mean, hey, you out here frolicking on Tyler Perry's 2 billion acre studio lot with Avengers and whatnot. I mean, hey,
I'm screaming.
hey, you do what you do. But I mean, yeah, that's an investment. Hopefully, that's a investment. I mean, I know, obviously, I know what I know, but that's the first step of like you said, reestablish yourself is to kind of get out there and see what's what. So
Yeah,
I'm sure that was a boost to your confidence. I guess is that how you want to put it.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. I think, and I even remember like around that same time that I had the realization that like you work, I don't know, like you work hard, you play hard. Like they play hard, obviously in Atlanta, but like people work hella hard too, as well. With the Gathering Spot, the other thing that I appreciate is like, yes, it's worth your investment, but also like outside of random run-ins with celebrities or whatever, like you are around people who like are serious about whatever they're working on. Everybody isn't even necessarily an entrepreneur. Like I met a woman who's like the marketing director of a local church, and me and her met like eating and like because they have like a restaurant inside the Gathering Spot location in Atlanta here as well. So I actually pulled myself like out of basically tunnel vision and only focusing on me. And I was like, you know what? I need to get all my money's worth. So I'm gonna go network, like see who up in here. And I went and I sat at the bar, ordered some food, and this older woman came and sat next to me, and she was like kikiing with the bartender, like they having a good time. And then I think she ended up noticing like the stickers that I have on my laptop, which one of them is like, the image of Sydney as a Marvel hero. And so she was like, what's that? And so when I started telling her, she was like, oh my God, I need him to speak like at my church. And they ended up like, she reached out to me some months later. They ended up paying like his speaker's fee. They ordered like a bulk order of his self-published book, his actual first book that was self-published. And at that time, by the time she reached out to have Sydney speak, I was like ready to give birth to Aria. And so I couldn't be there. I was like, girl, like this baby come any day now. So I can't, like he can be there, but I can't be there. So I don't know what this is about to look like. I was like, I probably have, Marwin, bring them. And she was like, well, I can have a driver come get him. And they sent a car to our house. They picked him up. They helped him set up his table. They assigned people to like basically help him, for his book signing, so it was like he was well taken care of, like made money and came right back home.
Made money, came right back home. Yeah. So, and that speaks to two things that I also wanted to touch on. One is how has it been watching his growth in regards to Books and Bros and just him coming to his own as, a young man, because it's very apparent if you just by looking and observing that he has a great village. He has a great village around him, and at the same time, he is still a young teenage boy
Let me tell you something.
who
As soon as we got off that U-Haul truck, Sydney took his glasses off. Sydney buffed up, got some muscle. I said, "Hold on, you in Atlanta in now?" See, but no, obviously, yes, he's grown into himself, which I'm happy about. I do think that, like, he, as we all did when we were teenagers, we were trying to figure ourselves out. And so I think he's kind of at that point of like, how can I be who I want to be for me, but also still like hold on to foundations that, my mom instilled in me and raising me. And so I think, we have a happy medium of that. I also feel like things worked out in our favor, even with moving, because originally we moved to Atlanta because he was accepted into Woodward Academy, which is like where I didn't know this at the time, but like it's where a lot of like the Black who's send their kids. And so I didn't know that, but then things ended up changing. What I can say, things happened unexpectedly. I was not happy, but Sydney did not end up going to that school. And so while he was on the wait list for another school, he did virtual learning because it was the pandemic. And by his sophomore year, he got accepted into Pace Academy, which I feel like Pace also has helped to keep him grounded because, like, while it is one of the top private schools in Georgia, it's very diverse. And, like, I appreciate the kids or the students that are there because a lot of them do come from money, but it's not like they're not flamboyant about it. So, like, one day, like, Sydney, the kids, they be wearing Crocs and stuff or whatever now. So, like, Sydney came home and he was like, "Mama, Emma had like a whole like quart size bag full of giblets." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, she was just like making it rain, like giving everybody giblets at school." And I was like, "Why? Like, was everybody going crazy?" He was like, "Well, they was like all Coca-Cola brand." And I was like, "Oh," I'm like, "She got the hookup." He was like, "Her dad's the president of Coca-Cola." And I was like, "What?" Like, where'd that come from? Like, and even like going back to what I said as far as like representation and seeing us, like one of Sydney's friends at school, one of the boys that plays on his football team, his mom, Black woman, their Black family, his mom is a scientist. I'm like, okay, come on, scientist. Like,
she said,
like,
come on, lab coat. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the lab coat. Ain't that what we do? But
Black people, bro. God love it.
But no, like it's very refreshing. So just I'm still adjusting to that because like you literally never know who you'll be in a room with because people talk about folks in Atlanta all the time as far as like being over the top and extra and always glamorous and this and that, but you really got to watch out for those who in plain clothes because like it be folks out here like with a regular ponytail to the back, no makeup on, t-shirt and jeans, and be running like full productions and having platforms that people will pay for. So that's what I've been.
But that's always should be the rule of thumb anyway. Is like treat people. Well, we know common sense isn't common, but treat people essentially how you want to be, treated and talked to,
just be normal
and things like that. Just be a regular, regular person because you don't know who you may be talking to. Like you said, plain Jane, and her.
I'm gonna say this so that way I can encourage folks to listen to this because I ain't even posted this on social media. But I have a meeting. I have a meeting tomorrow morning with someone who her son goes to school with Sydney, so she's a parent or whatever. But how can I put this? I have a meeting with the board for Usher Raymond's nonprofit tomorrow morning, and it's literally based off of a connection from a mom at Sydney school. Like you literally never know the proximity of like who knows who in Atlanta. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna need them tickets to his residency once you lock this up.
He said, "Go ahead, wrap that up." You know what I'm
Go
saying?
ahead.
Reel it in.
Go ahead, wrap that up, so because we want to go in July. So you and Marwin, come on. Sydney might not be able to watch Aria by himself, but
Sydney cannot go to Usher concert in Vegas.
No, I didn't say he was coming. Sorry, homie. Sorry, homie. Love you, but you can't come. So,
absolutely not.
So Sydney can stay home. Sydney at an age where you can stay home alone. Now Aria, like you said, it's a village.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a couple days. While you wrap up this Usher connect, and then we go to Vegas in July, and we sing Confessions like it's the first time ever hearing it, and then boom,
right. Yeah, no.
Quick little getaway, quick little summer getaway. But that's dope.
No,
That was dope.
yeah. So it's just like you literally like I have to remind myself. I'm like I can't be in the carpool line cussing nobody out because you never know who they gonna be. Like you never know. Like and it's like and I don't know if you've heard people say this, but it's like Atlanta's so big, but it's so small. So you gotta be careful like what you say, and you know how I am. Like if I don't rock with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna let it be known. Like I'm gonna have a conversation, whatever. Like, or I'm not. It's hard for me to like hide, and like I guess have that poker face or whatever. So I also have learned, to kind of like gauge the premises. Like if somebody come at me and be like, you wanna go work with Akon or whatever, ain't nobody ever said nothing about Akon. But like, and I don't personally have anything against him, but I'm just using him. He just at default right now. But I'm like, like even if I don't outwardly say I don't rock with Akon, it's gonna show on my face if I don't rock with him. So I have to work on that. But I try to gauge the relationships that I'm building now. And like I think at the end of the day, people are noticing my character. And that will take you far, like regardless. So
yeah. And so the second part of my question is like, at the end of the day, you're still you. You had I was gonna say you had Winnie. you had Sydney pretty young. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all practically grew up together. However, your identity is not solely tied into being a mom, a wife, this or that, or whatever. So what has that journey been like of you trying to balance like what me and my son have going on, his vision is thriving. On the flip side though, there are still wants and desires and dreams that I still have for myself, outside of my many other titles. So what has that kind of like self-discovery journey been like for you?
I think I'm like obviously still in it, but I think one thing that I really want people to understand is that like Books and Bros is not only Sydney's baby, like that's something that we both brought together at the like literally at the same time. So, I asked him probing questions as far as like, what do you want? What do you want to see? What do you envision? And then I made that make sense for his 10-year-old mind at the time. And then he put a name on top of it, and then we executed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we literally built this together. So when it comes to I guess like what the journey and the vision ongoing looks like is that I want to see Books and Bros outlive, my generation, his generation, Arya's generation. Like it ain't no how your little business going. Like we're really building a legacy.
Yeah.
So like that's really the focus. And like even while we laugh and stuff, I do think that like me if I, my mouth to God's ears, but I do think that it would be a dope like movie, like even just to show like our journey because I had Sydney at 17. We went through the trenches together. We went through really hard times and then our lives completely changed. And we were able to change other people's lives at the same time. So I think it could be like a dope movie concept. So I'm like, maybe before I'm 50, have a little Books and Bros biopic. It ain't necessarily got to be about me, but I feel like the whole totality of it could be dope. So, but yeah, that, and then also lately, I think because of me giving birth to a child recently and going through postpartum, which was really hard because I did not experience that with Sydney. But like now I'm trying to intentionally get back to things that make me feel good. So I have explored the idea of blogging again, or writing maybe possibly for writing for, larger platforms. Like I've always dreamed to actually have a byline in Essence. So just things like that I would like to enjoy. So, and it's funny because when we were in the middle of, getting you back connected on here.
You ain't gotta put me out here like that, bro. Damn. Nah.
My bad. But no, I was talking to somebody who I won't name, but I was talking to somebody in my DMs and she was asking me about speaking at Essence. And she's like, "Oh, I forgot that you spoke at Essence." I'm like, "Yeah, bro, I spoke at Essence last year. It was a time. It was great. And I would love to do it again." So
yeah, just throw that out. Just throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, no, because I'm saying like I spoke at Essence, and I like that's not the only thing that I want. Like it would be nice to actually have writing, for them as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see you. So, we love to see it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying. But long answer short.
Yeah. And you also have out, and that leads itself to like you have clients as well.
Yeah, I do.
So
and that's a lot of work.
Yes. I haven't put you to work yet, but I shall be putting you to work soon. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like you're gonna stress me out.
I'm not gonna stress you out. I'm very simple, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like I'm pretty, me, I'm pretty straightforward and realistic about what it is that I want and I'm striving for with this and anything else or whatever, outside of you sending me stuff for the Bachelor. But
if you try to be out here, I'm trying to get you out here. I'm trying to get you seen.
I feel it, and I'm all for it. If you know my personality, you know that is something I would probably fit right into. But people need that. But I ask that because like I know you have things that you want to accomplish, and I'm also learning at the age of 34 that like this shit is just really getting started. It is not, like what we envisioned for ourselves when we were 20. Like that's cool. You should want to have that ambition and drive, but like shit don't really kick up for you for most of us until like we hit 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even when we're 30, we're still trying to like process it and figure it out. I definitely thought that I was gonna be, white picket fence, married with children, living the life right now, and I just like am scratching the surface.
You still got a little time.
What it is that I want to. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, shit. All of the people that like we look up to, for the most part, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they living like 20-year-olds. Like 20-year-olds out, but it was a grind for them to get there. So it's either that you either want the fast, quick success and you just cash out right there, or you're like, nah, I'm gonna take my time, figure it out, try to build something. And I want to be like you say, I want to be remembered for something more than just that. I'm actually trying to
don't just come by, like it's not a fly by night. Like we're actually building something, worthwhile here.
All right. So before we get out of here, because I tend to, I want to keep the conversation. I was gonna be tight, man. Technology. Technology.
He was about to be like that.
Do you see the side of the thing what it says over here, or you just see me?
I just see you.
Okay, I know I look real crazy right there, bro. I was trying to figure out
You look like that
going
one
on.
dude, like one chance is all it takes.
Yeah, kick the damn thing. Yeah, man, this house to be tight. That this is for to stop recording. Like we just getting started. But so of course, my boy Marwin. Shout out to Marwin. Took you out the game. Retired your jersey as you should have. You feel me? One for the squad. But say not you Diddy bopping.
Don't mind me. I'm just looking at Marwin location. That's what I do.
Petty, man. Petty. But no, I was saying, like, what has the marriage life, the journey been like for y'all, because you said y'all were together for what, like when y'all moved, like 7 months at that point?
Yeah, we've been together for, I think this makes 4
I feel like
years. We started dating at the end of 2018. So we didn't really have like a full year until the end of 2019. So
okay. And then
like
y'all moved in
20.
2020.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so y'all were in it y'all were in it over a year. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But still, like deciding to move out of state together was a
no, it was a big jump. And it's like, I had a lot of audacity because, I can only imagine from like his family's perspective where I'm coming in and they're like, who is this new girl? Like, making our brother or my son, act this way and make different decisions on what he probably has wanted to, I guess, open up to. It's been a great, journey with Marwin and with his family. Like, I feel like they've learned me. I've learned them. Ultimately, we all got the same goal. Everybody loves Marwin and we want the best for him. And so like now I look at his siblings like my own. Sometimes they get on my nerves. Other times I just love them. But I'm grateful. So yeah, it's been a journey though. Like, and I'm really grateful for Marwin because when we met, I was very much at a place of like I really didn't need nobody. Like, and it wasn't like bitter. It was just like I had already been through so much trash where I was like, I finally got to a place of peace with myself. And I was like, I don't want to lose this. And I'm not about to risk this, to appease to somebody else. And so by the time he came around, it was just very much like no nonsense. And he helped to soften me up. He helped to bring some like emotional balance. And I always, regardless if you present or not, I always bring up like how you like kind of check me when I text you. I don't even remember what I said about him, but I was complaining, like probably saying he was being too nice.
Bugs can't have nice things.
And I was just like, I was just complaining. And you like, you ain't let up. You was like, why are you sabotaging yourself right now? Like, do you want to sabotage yourself? Do you want to be miserable? And I was like, all right, like I ain't have nothing to say. And I was like, he probably right. So like I've kept that close to my heart, just as far as like just being grateful. And obviously like I think anybody who's known us at least since we first started dating can see like the growth in us individually and as a couple.
Bet. Well, definitely glad that you stopped self-sabotaging yourself and now, you got a thriving family, thriving in all fronts, figuring, like I always say, figuring this life shit out, is always a big plus. But I'm super proud of y'all because I know how far y'all have come. I've been there since the early days, so
Yeah.
I know y'all put in a lot of work to get to where y'all got to. So yeah, I'm super happy for y'all. I love y'all. I got y'all back on everything. So yeah.
We love you too. Look, and while I'm thinking about it, like even like figuring it out, I don't know if I ever told you this, but we had a couples counseling session literally like 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant with Arya. And the crazy and like ironic part about the session, I'm comfortable in like sharing this now, but like it was around us figuring out parenthood together because obviously Arya is Marwan's first biological child. And so like he wasn't used to like how do you prepare for a stepdaddy role?
Yeah.
And so like he wasn't even though Sydney was like, a teenager at that point. Like I think he was like 13, 14 when we started dating. But it's still like you're coming into somebody else's space. And it might be even harder with them being a teenager because it's like me and Sydney
Yeah.
we already had our lifestyle established. We had our relationship established as mother and son. And he was kind of used to being protective over me, to a certain extent. So, and then Marwan didn't want to come in. Like he is very like, cognizant, of like how he shows up. And so he was like, I don't want to come off as if I'm replacing his father. Like he does have a biological father and they have their own understanding. So it's like, I don't want to come and confuse or mix anything up. But at the same time, I'm like, but you're here. Like you're here present with us in the house every day, all day. You're his father figure, so I'm giving you permission to like you can discipline. I ain't saying put your hands on my kid, but there's ways to discipline and to assert, your role, in this family. And so it was just crazy because like in that counseling session, that's when we learned like how he was disciplined was different than how I was disciplined. Like, most times as Black people, we can laugh about getting whoopings and this and that. And obviously, like, there's trauma attached to that most of the time. But outside of that, like, even there's different levels of whooping. So, like, just because we all got whoopings don't mean everybody got 10 whoopings a day. Or, like,
Facts.
Yeah. So it's like, it's different levels to it. So, like, we ended up talking about that in therapy. We got a good understanding and a good grip on like what moving forward, what it would look like for our household. And then I swear to God, like I was texting one of my friends and she was complaining about her cycle. And I was like, hold on, I ain't had one of them in a minute. And she was like, Winnie, I swear, if you pregnant, and I was just like, no, like, but for real. And I just knew I was just in my head too deep. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and get a test. And I took that test and that thing said positive. And I was like, you lying to me. Like, and it was so funny because I ended up like obviously taking it tomorrow and showing him and his whole face just turned red. Like it was like a mixture of like, I'm excited, but I'm nervous and like, what? Like, what are you saying? Right? Is this real? Like, are you playing with me?
Right.
So yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, it was crazy because like that literally happened. We had that like that mini moment of friction right before we found out we were actually having a child together.
Right. Yeah, that stuff is important, like it might be an underrated part of, you know, the whole relationship aspect when you really get into the nitty gritty and the bolts of it of like how were you brought up? Like, do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? And well, this I turned out this way. Well, I mean, what if there was a better way to go about that? What if there was a better way to
Yeah.
get to that end result? And our parents, none of our parents were perfect. You're not, you can't. There's no rule book to it. Especially coming into it as like you said, you and Sydney have this established relationship, established rapport, established lifestyle, whatever. And here comes, a new person to that. It could go one or two ways. It could have like disrupted things. It could have, luckily it went the other way. But
Yeah.
kudos. And that's just speaks to what you put into Sydney too. Because that could be tough. It
Mm-hmm.
going from like just me and my mom to like, oh, now there's this other person or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that is quote unquote looking out for me or whatever. And You know
Yeah, but
how us boys can be.
what I will say is like Marvin did a really good job early on with earning not only my trust but Sydney's. So like he showed up obviously like I feel like the typical I'm gonna just say like the typical guy thing to do if you're trying to impress somebody's kid is to like be fun and open and outgoing and all that. But
Yeah.
outside of that, like, there were a few times where Sydney like hurt himself and like I want to say we probably was talking for like a month or 2 months maybe, and Sydney broke his finger playing basketball at school. And at the time, I didn't have a car, and so he was like, "I can take you, to the doctor or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I'm just assuming like because of my past, I'm like, he just gonna drop me off. Like he just gonna drop us off, at the door and possibly come back and pick us up, or I'll take, we'll take an Uber home. Like I was very, how self sufficient I am. So it's like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been mad at it because like it was very early on and us dating.
Yeah.
But like when we got there, he pulled into the parking garage and I was like, you could just and he was like, no, I'm staying. Like I'm not dropping y'all off. And I was like, oh, all right.
Uh, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, and it just speaks to effort and like
Mhm.
wanting to be involved without like elbowing your way in. Like I'm gonna do
Yeah.
you know I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that. Like no, like I'm here. I drove y'all. I'm not going nowhere. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm locked in. It's ways to subtly do that without feeling like you gotta assert yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to y'all, and kudos to y'all for going to the couples thing because couples therapy is not easy. Speaking from experience, it is not easy at all. But and it's not to be taken lightly. Like
Yeah.
you make that decision when you're looking at this person and you're like, yo, this is my partner, this is my roadie for real, and we need
Yeah.
to figure out the best way to balance our similarities as well as our differences. So yeah, keep doing the work. Proud of you guys.
Thank you. And I'm proud of you too, because like you still been sticking through with, going to a therapist. As far as I know, I mean, from the outside looking in, like I feel like you still encourage therapy to
Oh
others.
yeah.
And so, pat yourself on the back, you know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
'Cause-
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I tell people all the time, like, I'm on the other side of like having addressed a bunch of things or whatever, when you consider like you quote unquote consider yourself, no, I'm good, I don't need that. It's typically you need to stay locked in.
yeah.
you need to keep going if even if things are, going really good or whatever, because there's always room for improvement, and
Mhm.
I tell my therapist all the time, like, yo, no, we locked in, buddy. Sorry. But
Look,
yeah, I ain't got no intentions on going nowhere no time soon. So, but yeah, I appreciate that for sure.
yeah.
I want everybody to be good because it's hard out here, man. It is extremely hard, adulting and trying to right the wrongs of your past and, unlearn toxic ways of thinking and doubt and all that stuff. It's hard. It can be a lot on top of dealing with real world everyday stuff, you know,
Yeah.
bills and, climbing the corporate ladder or climbing or establishing yourself as an entrepreneur. It's just, different battles for everybody. So, it can get to you if you don't have an outlet for that. So yeah, I definitely am going to always encourage, you know, seeking seeking help or whatever. And if y'all want my therapist name, y'all can gladly reach out. I'm not stingy. So
Man,
I
look,
got
nah,
I,
'cause
nah,
see,
I
because
was
at
about to
my
say I got my set schedule. You feel me? Like
okay,
he gonna
yeah,
he gonna see me on Saturdays regardless. So
you
but
gotta book
yeah.
it. You gotta book it before you put it out there. Cause I put my therapist name out there, and she ended up getting booked up. Like I was like, hold on, like obviously I got a gatekeep. I got a gatekeep. Cause
Yeah, so but yeah, I appreciate that pat on the back, those kind words. But before we get out of here, let them know where they can get in contact with you, follow you at, keep in touch with you.
Yeah. If you want to follow me, I post a lot of Books and Bros, PR work, and a lot of baby toddler things. So Aria actually just went viral on Instagram. It's a little bit like a me and her, but I was like trying to make like a sensory toy for her, and it ended up getting like over 1,000 likes on Instagram. I was like, okay, like all right. Mama made it. But no, you can follow me on social media at I am Winnie Elizabeth. That's on all platforms. I am Winnie Elizabeth on Instagram. I play around on TikTok every now and then, and Facebook. And then if you want to get in contact with me, anything regarding Books and Bros, my email is winnie@booksandbros.com. If you're interested in anything regarding PR, you can email me at contact@bookenterprise.com.
Yep.
So yeah,
There
try
you
to keep
go.
those separate,
Yeah.
but
You know.
and even if and I'm gonna say this while Jay White is here, while he's present now, see, because I told him my time is very limited. I ain't got time to be taking on. I don't take everybody on as a client. I'm very honest about that because I cannot help everybody. I'm not an expert in everything. So, if you're trying to be a rapper, I'm not the right publicist for that. But what I can help just about anybody with is if you need a media kit, I'm pretty good at designing those. If you need some strategy, we can have a consultation call. So it's not just limited to me being your publicist. There's other ways that I can be, of service as well.
Yep. There you go. Yep. And that's all that you really can ask for is just, getting pointed in the right direction, So especially,
Yeah.
when you just like you want to help but you just can't, just need a little push in the right direction. It's all good. That's all we
Yeah.
need sometimes. So yeah. I appreciate, you jumping on from Tyler Perry's studio and rapping with me
Bye.
on this here night. But yeah, make sure y'all tap in with her. All the information is in the show notes per usual. And until next time, we'll holler at y'all later. Peace.